Hi, my name is DJ.
And I'm Katie.
And we're going to start with prompt 1. First question is, who is Raphael McCollum? And Raphael is an Israeli organic chemist and professor of medical chemistry at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem in Israel. And he is responsible for being the first chemist to isolate THC. And then the next question is, how did Raphael begin his career as a cannabis researcher? He began his career by asking police officers for confiscated cannabis, weed, and stuff like that they had collected from people. And then they actually donated more than 5 kilos worth of it to him, and that's how he really started off his studies. Why is Raphael considered to be heretic by many MDs and medical researchers? He's believed to be heretic by many medical doctors and researchers because they are all uncomfortable with just the whole weed as medicine and medical marijuana is just something you inhale as smoke, and they just don't fully agree with it being something that can help you, even though he's proven that it does help you. But they're just so skeptical because of all the laws that have been passed and all the other things that they just don't want to believe in it, so they don't want to believe in him. What was the first major breakthrough in McCollum's research? The isolation of THC. What is THC and how does it work? THC, or tetrahydrocannabinol, is the compound in cannabis that is psychoactive and gives you the feeling of being high. THC attaches to the neurons in the brain and mimics the natural chemical androgyny, but just changes the process in its own way. What is CBD and how does it work? CBD stands for cannabinoid. It is derived directly from the hemp plant. CBD is used for stress, soreness, muscles, and other things like that. Why did the scientific and medical community ignore McCollum's amazing findings? They ignored his findings because they just didn't want to believe in it. It was unethical, and they just didn't feel like it was time to decriminalize weed and put it as something that is a medical benefit in our lives. So they just don't want to believe in him yet. What is the status of cannabis policy in Israel, his home country? It is illegal, but it is decriminalized partially. I found out that the home use and possession is up to 15 grams, medically. What is a paradigm shift? It is a fundamental change in approach or underlying assumptions. And how is Raphael's cannabis research an example of a paradigm revolution? Because he took an underlying approach to the marijuana medicine industry and changed the game about THC. Medical doctors don't want to believe in his theories still because of just how he took the approach and how it's still medical marijuana, but they're just going to have to agree to it and just come to the fact that it's helping people and that a lot of people need it. And then, who are Canna Moms? How and why did Canna Moms bring the findings to America when the scientific community would not? Canna Moms were formed in 2014 to educate and empower parents of critically or chronically ill children to be able to use medical marijuana, and they didn't like that they weren't ready to accept medical marijuana, so they decided to bring it into their own hands, and they decided to bring it here.
Okay, and I'm gonna do prompt number 4. So what was the California Proposition 215 designed to accomplish? Proposition 215 was a law passed allowing the use of medical cannabis. Was it successful? Yes, it was. What are pot clubs? They are non-commercial organizations which organize a professional collective cultivation of very limited amounts of cannabis. How did California government and law enforcement officials react to Prop 215 pot clubs? They did not like it, and they were anti-cannabis and tried to shut the pot clubs down, and they arrested the marijuana users as much as they could. What was the Colorado Amendment 20 designed to accomplish? Amendment 20 was effectively legalized limited amounts of medical cannabis for patients and their primary givers in Colorado. Yes, it was successful. How did Colorado government and law enforcement officials react to Amendment 20 medical dispensaries? At first, it had the same reaction as California did, but then it helped our economy, and so then everyone just decided to be okay with it. The police and governors had to get on board.
Somebody must have noticed something.
They keep the victims hidden. Once we figure that out, we'll find them.
The answers.
And this should work.
Is medical cannabis more or less appealing to Coloradans since passage of Amendment 64? It became less appealing because recreational use, you were just required to be 21, and less appealing because of the need of your card.
Who is Richard Nixon? Why did he launch the war on drugs? Richard Nixon was the 37th U.S. president and a big anti-drug person. The cause for his war on drugs were ghettos, Woodstock, and people in military kept failing drug tests. Nixon did not like this at all, so Nixon wanted to be elite. He wanted to build elite everything. He wasn't the biggest fan of colored people or minorities, so he tried to target all of those specific groups, and that's who he tried to put the war on drugs on. What role did Elvis Presley offer to play in Nixon's war on drugs? Elvis wanted to be a secret agent for Nixon, and when Nixon received a note saying that Elvis wanted to come and meet him, he decided to let him. He also appointed Elvis a secret agent, which was pretty cool, I found out. In what sense was Nixon's war on drugs a smokescreen to intensify federal aggression against people that Nixon despised? He was targeting specific people of color, immigrants, and hippies from Woodstock. He wasn't going after the rich white Americans by attacking ghettos, because those were one of the main places that he was attacking. So it just shows that he wasn't really trying to stop the war on drugs. He was just trying to stop colored people, black people, immigrants, and just like people who he did not like. He was trying to get them to stop using the drugs. What was the Schaefer Commission? Oh, hold on. Sorry, I missed one. What was the... Oh, sorry. What was the Schaefer Commission? It was an organization that helped decriminalize weed. First to say it was not dangerous and it should be in a class like alcohol. And then, why did Nixon impale the Schaefer Commission? He assumed the findings would be bad, and he could also say weed is bad, but when he found out the findings weren't bad, he kind of couldn't say anything. What were the Schaefer Commission's findings? That weed was not bad, it should be legal, like it was helping people and stuff like that. And then, what did Nixon do with the Schaefer Commission's report? He had them re-look at them, and he had them re-edit them so they would have his punishments and have the harsh punishments he believed in and have his ethical view on weed. He made them redo it. And then, who is Nancy Reagan? Why did she launch the Just Say No campaign? And Nancy Reagan was just President Reagan's wife, and she just wanted to help him with the war on drugs. And was her thing successful? No, people still continue to use drugs at a high rate, so they were just gas in their horns.
That's Sarah Hillman.